All right, market analysis. So market analysis is critical. We perform market research and we analyze the data that comes out of that research. It provides answers, generates insights, and it informs our decisions. Market research is used to understand how a market is behaving. It looks at trends, how it helps us understand the attitudes, the behavior, and the preferences of our customers. It helps us understand customer reactions and their receptivity to your product or your service. It helps us understand the competition, right? Knowing and understanding your competitors and who to pay attention to. And it helps you validate all of the assumptions that you have placed as part of your thinking in developing your strategy. The benefits are on the right here. It confirms your knowledge. It helps you set realistic targets. It helps you build confidence in an organization around your strategy and the forecasting of your launch metrics. And it also helps you mitigate risk. Without doing good market research, you risk your launch by not getting it right. And market research is often performed either in a secondary market research context or a primary market research context. Secondary market research, it differs from primary market research. First of all, secondary market research, you're collecting data that has already been collected. Usually you can find it through a Google search, for example. Quite often we're mining published data, population demographics info, guidelines or surveys, research studies and publications. And it answers these kinds of questions. What is the market? How's it behaving? Who is my customer? Who are the competitors? Primary market research is different and it's more costly. This is where we collect data directly. It can be done qualitatively through focus groups, face-to-face interviews or industry peers, or it can be quantitative through face-to-face interviews, telephone interviews, or online engagement. And it answers a different sets of questions. It can answer, are customers willing to use my product? Is my product or service priced right? And does the value proposition align with the lens of our future customers? And market research is used to inform so many different aspects of your product development process. Early on, we perform market research to understand our customer segments, their unmet needs, gaps, any barriers to enter this marketplace, forecast drivers. And even though it starts here early, quite often it continues as you move on. Market research can inform product development research, such as attribute testing, a willingness to use a product. It can inform partnering and licensing work streams where you can explore and examine negotiations with various partners. It clearly informs product launch strategies in helping to kind of focus on what are the right things that we need to do to launch these products. And it also supports both your post-launch research and lifecycle management. For early stage companies, most companies perform secondary market research and some qualitative primary research. And for those that have the funds to take the research to a different level, some early stage companies also try to perform quantitative primary market research as well. Market research is costly. It consumes your time when you're doing secondary market research. And when you're doing primary market research, quite often you're hiring a third-party company to execute the research for you. So we have to keep this in mind. Therefore, there is a methodical process that is, and it's an iterative process that suggests how you can go about it. You start with defining what information do I need. Then you evaluate your resources. Quite often we start with secondary resources. We see what answers we can get. From there, you can examine primary market research. You need to determine what additional answers do we need to get from primary market research. Then you design your research method, you sample and you collect your data, you analyze your data, and then you do it again. And then you do it again and you do it again along the product development path, because over time, markets can change and they evolve. So when we define what kind of info we need, these are the kinds of questions that we're asking here. How big is the market? What are the drivers? Who are the leading competitors? What material information has been made available recently? When we evaluate the sources of information, there's a lot out there. You could use public or private sources of information. You can look at how timely the information is, how forward-looking is the information, how targeted is in the information, and how credible is the information. We quite often start with secondary sources. It could be census document, internet, articles, trade associations, government sources, registries, gender or ethnic specific publications, financial data that is available publicly. And of course, internet is one of the big areas. We are on the internet, but be careful with the information. There's some sources are broad, like census, internet, new articles. Then there's very specific information where you're looking for something very specific, where we can go into databases like clinicaltrials.gov, government registries, published market reports, analyst reports, and industry peers and networks. This here is an example of the databases that are available through the University of Toronto library system. Now, I'm going to update this for everyone and provide it to Ahmed, and he'll get it for you. Some of the names of these database sources may have changed, I understand, following the pandemic period. So we'll get those updated for you. But some of these sources are powerful, and I'm going to give you an example. IBIS World and what was called marketresearch.com can help you get your fingers on rich sources of information. And here is a few examples. I went to the library and I looked up a few reports on the global biotechnology market and the global pharmaceuticals and medical manufacturing marketplace. And these reports can give you not only an executive summary, but a real good understanding on how the markets are growing. It gives you a breakdown of market growth and revenues over a multi-year period. It can also examine, in this case, this is an orthopedic market report. It shows you the number of orthopedic procedures in Europe, US, Asia Pacific. How many procedures take place in the US specifically. And again, a very, very, very powerful report. It also gives you insights into the leading competitors, all right? A report like this can cost an organization $2,000 to $3,000 up to $5,000, and it can take you, weeks to collect this information. But if you're astute and you are able to leverage some of these rich resources that are available in the University of Toronto library system, you can empower yourself with excellent data on the marketplace, including real solid understanding of the competitive landscape and all the leading companies that are playing in the various markets that you may be focusing on. And this example that we looked at here was just the orthopedic device marketplace. So very, very powerful. There are additional sources to collect data. You heard me say EDGAR and CEDAR. These are information repositories for public companies, and You are able to leverage various information from them to collect strategic insights. There are news releases on their IP, various offerings such as mergers and acquisitions. There could be study results and partnerships and many more. These are very powerful search engines that allows you at least to dig in to a public company to gain some unique insights of how they operate and their products and how their products are performing in the marketplace. And for some of you that might have a relationship with your VC partners, or there are various venture capital reports that you may be able to leverage if you can get your fingers on them or have the connection. But Mars, for example, also generates market intelligence reports. And if you can collaborate with Mars and be a part of some of their program offerings, there are very rich resources that you can gain from Mars. A couple of reminders for all of you when you're performing market research. You got to ask the question when evaluating secondary data, you know, what was the research provider's purpose in presenting the data? Who collected it? When was it collected? How? What type of data? Is the data consistent? Don't forget, there is data out there that has low credibility. I call these media reports and Wikipedia. Then there are those that have high credibility, such as Health Canada or clinicaltrials.gov. Be very careful about the source of information and where it comes from, and you need to be a good judge on how much weighting to put on the credibility of the various reports that you find online based on kind of a credibility criteria. Primary market research, it's rigorous, it's a structured process. The questions that you want to answer are usually developed by a specialist who knows how to answer the question. They do that to ensure that you get robust, applicable, and unbiased results. Information that you may seek may be qualitative or quantitative. It is costly to do, and firms may be large with a broad focus or a niche targeted within specific specialties. I'm going to expand on that in a moment. So low-cost primary market research can be done, like informal focus group, informal interviews, online bulletin boards, email blasts, direct mail surveys, telephone surveys. There's a lot of things that you can do. But you can also get very specific information that you may not be able to get from here with the help of a market research firm. And typically, primary market research flows from qualitative to quantitative. And that's something that you should keep in mind. And finally, this is just a list of some of the leading market research companies. Many of them are small boutique companies that specialize in the area of drug therapeutics and medical devices. I'm not in a position here to tell you who to work with or who not to work with, but this is a good starting point for you to know that, hey, if I need to go out there and perform primary market research, at least you have this information at your fingertips to help you get started in finding out which of these companies may be best suited to perform your primary market research needs. And in summary, I just want to say that market research, it's critical. It's critical to inform, to mitigate risks, and to confirm the value of what you're offering, whether it's a product or a service. And it's also a continuous and iterative process. Quite often, we perform market research in an iterative way, starting early. I call it market research light, and later towards launch, market research heavy, to ensure that you leave no stones unturned in understanding your market, how the market's behaving, your competitors, how they are behaving, and your company and the strategies that you are implementing to ensure a successful launch of your product or your service. And that's our session for today. I thank you. And we're going to shift gears now, and we're going to do the exercise. So,
and Nick, before shifting gears, well, first I want to thank you very much for this great presentation. I know you shared a lot of great resources. I just want to add some additional information on market research for attendees. Usually innovators at Sunnybrook are looking for ways to gather market data. And sometimes if you're in a early stage startup, you don't have, money or a lot of money to invest, and you're looking to gather market data in a free and an efficient way. Some of other things our innovators do is, for example, identify a few companies in the space that you are operating and listen to their quarterly conference calls or read their financial statements and reports. Organizations like the American Heart Association, they release annual statistics about certain disease states or number of cardiac surgeries performed per year, for example, or number of angioplasties done in the US, or trends in these procedures. This is all our free available information for you that you can tap into. Accounting firms, I think, Nick, you touched a little bit on that. They release trends and life sciences reports that are available and free for everyone. Silicon Valley Bank, they release annual reports on the state of investments and merger and acquisition activity in the medtech space. So again, this is all free and a very good way for you to kind of get a sense on what's happening in the market.
Thank you. I think you would all be surprised at how rich the resources are at your fingertips and what you can gather from a secondary market research perspective. And it would position you so well to leverage that to conduct future primary market research if you need to perform that primary research to answer very specific questions related to your strategy and your product. That was a really nice summary there, Ahmed. Thank you. And that brings us now to our workshop. So as a reminder, you're going to be broken out into workshop groups. We need a scriber to create that grid, all right, on PowerPoint. So you insert a table and you create a table 3 by 3, 4 by 4, 5 by 5. But that doesn't mean you have to fill in every single cell. Just fill in the cells that you think you need. And we're just going to look for one presenter. And if we have time, we'll have 2 presenters. It may be 1 presenter. There is no right or wrong here because there are different ways in which you can do this. So you're not being judged. But the idea is to get a feel for creating this template. So remember, you're launching a new mandibular splint. Go into this website, spend 10 minutes going through it. And then I want you to identify the different types of sleep apnea and the different severities of sleep apnea. Okay? So you're going to put on one axis the different types, on the other axis the different severities. That's all you need to do. All right? It's a simple exercise. However, if you have the time and you can try to populate the different segments of that market, that would be icing on the cake. And of course, and utopia would be if there's anything that you can define in here, but that's not expected from you. So you don't need to worry about that. So go ahead, break out, create your grid, read the website, and then populate these variables. And once again, that website is www.sleepapnea.org. I will keep this up so you have it with you, or if you can just write this down, I will let you all go. I will see you in 30 minutes.
Okay, Nick, I'm starting to.
We'll give 2.5 minutes for the for your presentation, and then I am going to present how I did the exercise as well in the last 2.5 minutes, and we'll be able to compare.
Kind of putting us on the spot here.
No, not at all. In fact, well, because what I'm seeing looks pretty good. So why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess everybody kind of has like the same severity and type configuration as we have. What we also did is we split it into both men and women, because both types of sleep apnea have different manifestations in men and women. And then our main target audience would be pretty much the in the mild range of obstructive sleep apnea, as well as in the medium range for women. We decided not to go with the medium range for men because they usually have riskier symptoms, for example, falling asleep while driving. There's actually a significant number of motor vehicle accidents associated with that. So kind of like a long-term improvement via dentures is possible, yeah, but it's probably not preferred, since you don't want to lose autonomy by, losing your driver's license for some time. Especially for the mild cases of obstructive sleep apnea, there are about 500 million cases worldwide, so that is kind of a huge target market, as well as for the medium one for women, where we add another 50 million. So we kind of established that would be our main target audience here, and especially if we go for cheaper dentures, which would be more accessible and easier to try out. That would be a great use. And also potentially for just normal people who may be experiencing manifestations of symptoms in very rare cases, a very accessible brand of dental helps may also contribute. But that's kind of what we thought.
Wow. I am blown away, and what an exceptional job that you have done in a half hour. You can just imagine what happens if you spend a few hours on this to think about it, fine tune it, and adjust it. But you nailed the exercise. And now I also performed the exercise. I'll share with you how I did it. There's some little bit differences here, but let me share my screen with you. So exceptional, well done, you nailed it.
Thank you.
So let me share my screen with you now here, and as part of wrapping up this session. So when of course, I'm more knowledgeable about this area, and basically there are 3 types of sleep apnea. There's obstructive, there's central, and there is also something called mixed. And mixed, maybe you didn't see it in the website. That's okay. But the obstructive means the brain signal is unsuccessful due to some kind of an airway obstruction. Central sleep apnea, your brain does not send the signal to your muscles to breathe. And mixed apnea is a mix of both. And you got most of these. You got the central, you got the obstructive. I don't think you got the mixed, but that's okay. It takes someone to know this market a little bit more to understand that. And there are 3 types of severities: mild, moderate, and severe, defined by how many episodes you have. So I like this because it's high-level segmentation. It demonstrates the total addressable market, and the variables allow you to characterize the market segments and identify your target. Here's another way of doing it. You can also take obstructive, central, and mixed, and you could put mild, moderate, severe in each of those buckets. So think of it like peeling an onion. You could do a high-level segmentation grid, but you can also go more detail. And on the other variables, you could look at physician specialties: neurologists, ENTs, sleep specialists, primary doctors. I know you weren't asked to use those variables, but you can do that. You can use different variables. And this is an example of that. This one, the variables, allows you to characterize these treaters and illustrate targeted strategies against different treaters because they think differently. This one shows you mild, moderate, severe, but those that are not treated, those that are treated and not controlled, and those that are treated and controlled. This can help you quantify patient numbers, how many patients. So when you're forecasting your revenue, you can say, okay, we're targeting this market and we know how many patients are there. This is even another example of peeling the onion to the next level. So similar to you, I identified these buckets, and they are as follows. Obstructive sleep apnea requires an intervention like a mandibular device that changes something to allow you to improve the airflow. And these devices, mandibular devices, can be applied to mild, moderate, and severe apnea. Central sleep apnea is different. This quite often may require other interventions, including medication, possibly, and same with mixed sleep apnea. There could be, but because mixed includes obstructive and central sleep apnea, there may be an opportunity here. And these are the types of questions that you can answer in each of these segments, just like you did, but you can even do more when you have more time. So I think this was my final slide. My slide was 84% of the cases are obstructive sleep apnea. 1% is central, and about 15% of the cases is mixed. And then there's another group here of severe sleep apnea that it's very difficult to determine. They are problematic cases. So if you're launching a mandibular splint, where do you play now? This is your total addressable market. The company that did this exercise, they made the following decisions. They're going to launch their mandibular splint in obstructive sleep apnea market segment of the total addressable market. Their secondary market is on the right because there may be required multiple modality treatment to treat mixed, including a mandibular splint. But for central sleep apnea, the decision there is, if we go after this market, which is a small number of patients, it may be better to partner with another company. And then this is another secondary market here. And that's an example. This is a powerful way of doing an exercise of defining your total addressable market. These are all the places that you can play with, but now you need to find which of these market segments best aligns with your product and the value proposition of your product. And in this case, the go-to was obstructive sleep apnea. So a pitch to a venture capital, say our go-to market is obstructive sleep apnea. We also will be targeting some mixed sleep apnea patients. And then you can build a strategy around that. In fact, they even put their revenue forecast here of year 1, year 2, and 15% market share by year 3, based on other insights. It's a powerful exercise. It's a powerful tool. And for those of you who are required to do a market segmentation exercise, you now have a little bit of experience of using this tool and doing it this way. It's not the only way. There are other ways of doing it, but this tool is tried, it's tested, it's true, and it works for both companies who are developing therapeutics and companies developing medical devices. I hope you gained some good experience and knowledge of these tools and some practical experience of how to work with them. Now the question is, can you take this and apply it in the real world in the settings that you are working in today? That wraps up our session. I thank you. Went a few minutes over. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. But I hope you all gained from this. And for those of you that are still on, I would be happy to take any questions or answers either on this exercise or anything else that we talked about today.
Thank you very much, Nick. That was an outstanding session as always. Does anyone have any final questions, thoughts, feedback?
How would you adapt this particular exercise when your product is not being paid for by the person that's using it?
Would I adapt it? No, because I think the purpose of the exercise is just to define where you're going to play, and right. But to address the question, the answer, it's how are you going to win, which is all about developing your strategies, including your market access strategies. So I have seen these tools be used for multiple purposes. Sometimes you can do this just to define decisions like this. We're going to make decisions where we're going to play. Sometimes within these boxes, you can characterize these market segments from a different lens, including from a market access lens. You can do it from a competitive lens. Who are playing in these spaces? Who are the market leaders? So no, I would still, this exercise is used just to define all the total addressable market and then where you're going to play in that total addressable market. And then those kinds of questions are addressed in another exercise as how are now we going to win inside this space. And so you define this space through market research. How are the products paid for? Who are the payers? What groundwork do we need to lay in order to prepare for market access, such as generating an evidence package that would be reviewed by maybe some kind of a regulatory body that is the decision maker of whether they will or will not pay for your product? Great question.
Thank you.
Excellent question. Any other questions or comments?
I had one question.
Yep.
Regarding the variation 2 that you showed, what's the value in also showcasing which providers would be able to sort of utilize it?
Can you ask that question again, please? I'm just trying to get my head around it.
Sorry, like in a couple slides back, you showed like the 3 variations of the market segmentation.
Oh, yes. Here.
So, yes. So in variation 2,
yeah.
What, like from like a, I guess, decision-making standpoint or even like a selling standpoint, having like those specialties, can that sort of cause confusion, or like what's the ultimate value in having that?
Yeah, well, you know, what you would most likely see in a box like this is that primary doctors would probably spend more time treating mild cases, maybe to moderate cases. And, but if they're severe, it's very likely that your sleep specialists or ENT or neurologists would treat these patients. Do you see where I'm getting at?
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay.
Why this is important is because if for any reason your product is better suited maybe for mild or moderate, I'm just a hypothetical example, moderate severity of obstructive sleep apnea, it would be a waste of resources to focus entirely here. These are the people that are prescribing these products for these patients. If, on the other hand, your intervention is better suited for moderate or severe obstructive sleep apnea, you're most likely to target your sleep specialist, ear, nose, and throat and neurology. So these market segmentation models can also help you in understanding where to channel your resources with your marketing and sales strategies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why this is such a powerful exercise. You not only define your segments, but you also, it helps inform you of where to channel your resources and where to focus with your strategies. I hope that's a great example, and that's well demonstrated in this market segmentation grid. And that's why some companies will do a high level, and then sometimes they will go into a deeper level because they want to be much more precise with their targeting and their strategies by understanding what type of patient are we targeting, a mild, a moderate, and severe, and therefore which physician group do we need to target and why. And this kind of an exercise really helps you understand that. And then here you can define how these sleep specialists make their decisions. This box in here, it's open-ended. You can characterize it through your market research, whether it's secondary or primary market research.
No, that makes a lot more sense, because the entire time I was thinking, oh, you're going to be marketing or selling straight to the consumer. But if you are having the marketing to the doctors, then it opens up a different channel. So that makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. No, in this case, the variables here were different than what I asked you to do. The variables were who treats these patients and across the different types of disease at the top. And that helps you to target, create targeted strategies to those who are going to be recommending your product across these various different subset of patients. It's a powerful tool, and it's a powerful exercise.
Thank you. Sorry, one more question. Could I see variation 3 as well? I didn't get a chance to see it earlier.
Variation 3 was same physician specialties on the left, but here, rather than doing mild, moderate, severe, there are some patients where they may be mild, but they're not treated, or in other words, they're a new patient, or they're an existing patient where they're treated, but what they're using is not controlling them. And then there may be those that are treated and they are controlled. In other words, they're happy, right? So you're not going to target those patients because you're not likely to, a caregiver is not going to switch your mandibular splint if you are happy and it's working. So this also allows you to examine your market segments again in a different way.
Okay, that makes sense. Could this also be used to maybe get a sense of the competition then?
Yes. In fact, when you characterize these, when you characterize these boxes, you can focus on the size, how many patients, or you can focus on what's the standard of practice of treating these patients. You can also do it from a competitive aspect. These boxes can just focus on the competition. Who is the market leader? And you can ask additional questions regarding the competition. Remember, the variables are open for you to choose to make it work for your needs. The answers you need to question, the questions you need to answer, and how you populate these boxes is based on the questions that you need to answer. And I have seen sometimes very busy boxes with small font. I've also seen some people that do multiple duplicates of this, but one will just focus on how big is the market, the number of patients. Some will just focus on competition. Some may focus on reimbursement. How are products reimbursed in this space? And the answers to these questions just helps you hone in on what you need to do and the strategies that you need to implement in order to develop a tight commercialization plan that positions you for a successful launch and a good uptake of your product in the market.
Got it. Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any more questions, comments?
Yeah. Hi, Nick. Thanks
Hi.
so much for the presentation. It was very insightful. I was just
Excellent.
very curious in terms of how often, in your experience, do companies typically, I guess, revisit or reevaluate their market segmentation? Or do you think it should be, it depends on the company, or is there a standard for how often they should do this?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I would recommend to perform this when there's enough new material information that might change the market. So for example, there could be a new competitor that came, and therefore you want to kind of understand, where are they? So I'll give you an example. I developed this. I was leading the development of a product, and it was actually this one here. It was a PCSK9, which is a monoclonal antibody that has a side effects very similar to a placebo. The product is called Repatha. It's already on the market, and I played a role in the early commercialization plan. Well, what happened was prior to this product being developed in the marketplace, there was no PCSK9. Historically, any patients on statins that are not at target, the physicians try what's called combination therapy. They start mixing other products to lower your cholesterol. But quite often, this combination exercise doesn't work. And therefore, they may try switching statins. And so that's what we learned there. Mm-hmm. There's a statin intolerant group where they do not respond well to the standard of care, which is a statin. So here, there's a lot of switching that's going on. And then historically, for high-risk patients, they continued here with statins, and that was the market. But when the PCSK9 product came out, it changed the market. Now there's a new option here. So this option is that this PCSK9 monoclonal antibody, it significantly reduces LDL patients in those who fail statins. Therefore, now there's an alternative to this not being on target, and there's an alternative to being intolerant. And now there's a new promise for patients who have either are not controlled or they cannot tolerate a statin. So when I am sure that when this product was launched, all the other competitor companies kind of went back to re-examine now the market, and they would want to understand this a little bit more because it is a big opportunity here, even though it's a smaller number of patients compared to the number of patients here. So there are people that are assigned to perform competitive due diligence on an ongoing basis.
I see.
And based on various events that you learn in the marketplace, it could be a press release, it could be your knowledge of from clinicaltrials.gov, it could be just a new product launch that's out there. You should go back and reevaluate all of your competitive assessments and also your market segmentation models, just to examine, does the model change in any way? In this case, it did. There now is a new, there's a new segment, and that segment is the high-risk patients who now can be treated with PCSK9s. And that didn't exist before. So yeah, I do these exercises on a periodic basis. or you do them ad hoc if there's an event out there that there's news where something has changed dramatically in the market, and you need to understand, how does this impact me? So these exercises are worth doing periodically. And remember, every year you have a new business plan, right? So you launch a product, and each year the business plan is refreshed with the goal of growing your business and growing your market share. So we always do a revisit of the competitive landscape. What changed? How does it impact us? We do a revisit of the market segmentation. And what's changed? How does it impact us? And we always stay in tune with this and fine tune your strategies on an annual basis.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's really important to, don't wait and start planning and really acknowledge all the changes and be ready to adapt, especially if you are in it for the long run. But yeah, this was very, very useful, and I very much enjoyed the exercise. Thank you.
Excellent. And don't remember, this is a working tool. This isn't necessarily the tool that you need to present to a VC, or sometimes we spin the outputs of this exercise into charts, tables, pie charts. There are other ways to express this in a presentation, but the background work that you do, this is it. This is how you do it. And you can create outputs in many different ways of this knowledge, and you just find the way that works for you for the purpose that you are seeking. These are great questions. Thank you. And you're staying longer. I appreciate that. Any more questions? Okay.
I think that's it. Thank you very much.
I just want to say thank you, everyone, for your participation. This was an amazing group. You did good, excellent questions, great exercise, and great. I want to thank in particular the team who volunteered, putting your neck out there, even though you weren't being judged, right? Whether you got it right or wrong. But I think you got the essence of how to do it. So well done. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Nick, and thanks everyone for joining. Always a pleasure to have you with us, Nick. And again, amazing, outstanding session. A lot of people already asking me about the slides, about the recording. People want to revisit what you mentioned earlier. So thank you again for this. And yeah, I also realize you stayed almost half an hour to answer questions. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you, everyone. So we'll see you next week on Thursday, Feb 2nd. And please have a very good night. Take care.
Thank you.